I do believe I am live. Need to make an effort to be a bit more mellow. I always sound so hyper. I don't mean to. To my ear, I sometimes sound a bit aggressive, which I find very peculiar. That's the very last thing that is going on inside me. But I sound that way. Not sure why. It's most peculiar. Anyway, I'm going to make every effort to be mellow and calm and gentle. Oh, anyway, I got a bit of a cold as well. Okay, okay. Just sharing everything, get going. There's no Bina for an introduction. I just have to get through it myself. Quite a lot to do in the beginning. I have to mark it as featured, add it to the group. I have to edit the, not sure what you call it, just the link and the hashtags and the title and all that. For whatever reason, it doesn't come all the way through from the beginning. So, sharing it to the group, to the guide at least, and then sharing it to my own page, to my own timeline, and also sharing it to the Nobelia page so that it can show on the website. It's just a lot of little things, they add up in terms of time. It's quite amazing. Quite amazing. Ah, very good. Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Cheryl is here. Hello, 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 wonderful Cheryl. Hello. I wonder how your voice is. How is your voice? Let me know. Let me know. Brilliant. Norma's here too. You found it on your own, Norma. Brilliant. I love it. I love it. Yeah, just I go right at 10. I'm pretty punctual usually, and just have to refresh. It doesn't come automatically. It has to. That's fantastic. Just makes me so happy when my wonderful friends are here. I treasure my friends. I absolutely treasure my very precious, very magical, very magical. I really treasure you being, and I treasure what you say as well. It's not just you being here. It's not because it's support. No, yes, that's nice, but it's the fact that I'm sharing with you, even if you don't say a word. For me, internally, when I feel I am sharing to my friends or to anybody really, but especially to my friends, if I feel like I'm sharing, that adds so much more. It changes for me how how things come out, right? And who's there. That's why I love it when people say hello. It changes also what I'm saying, right? In small, subtle ways, things that may come up that I feel are pertinent and relevant, to you as individuals. There's a limit to how much I can do that, of course, there's loads of people, but it's amazing how much gets pulled out of me. It's very powerful. It's very, very powerful. So it's really cool. It's really cool that it really matters to me. It really makes. All right, so we're going to continue with our detailed capital R reading of chapter 13, gestures and friendships. And Cheryl, just to catch you up, this chapter, at least it starts off, and it's a bit beguilingly simple, or seemingly so. But as always, there's much nuance involved. And the title is important here because that gesture, right? It's a capital G gesture, which is an act of moreness that one does, even though it may have no value, no consequence. There's no hope of it being successful. Doesn't matter. We do it anyway, right? This is a gesture. My outdoors. I just washed my hair. No, my head was just a bit cold, Norma. So there's not really much to wash, as you probably saw yesterday, right? So, or Sean. But yeah, my head was just feeling a bit cold, so I was like, all right, it's all clear. My voice is about 90% back. Still can't sing. I guess that's a gift to the public around me. Oh, no, when people enjoy singing, it's always beautiful, no matter what their voices sound like. No, I mean, I hear you. It's one of the great tragedies in my life, and that is that my singing voice doesn't even sound nice to me. Yeah, most people they quite happy with their own singing voices, but I love to sing, but it just doesn't sound right. Oh, I struggle. But, talking, I enjoy listening to my talking voice, but not singing. Maybe one day I'll sing a bit, and then you'll see what I mean. I think it depends how you sing as well. I think anybody can sound okay if they sing in a way that is okay for their voice. Yeah, yeah, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, Cyril. All right, so let's continue where we were. Do I have everything set up? Yes, everything is done. I've shared everywhere. I've got grain going. Grain it's very nice. What it does, it's AI, and it not only records things, but it does a transcript, and it does a summary of the transcript, and it really makes a very nice summary. And I use those when I post to Substack and YouTube. Yeah, it's very nice the way it does. All right, so Cheryl, to catch you up, right? Biella and Ursula are up on in Tree City, right? These huge, great, big, massive mountain-sized trees. They're tall as the mountain, right? And then their crown is huge. It's wide across, and people live on there. There's houses on top of this crown, and the branches are these great, big, massive branches, like roads. And they connect. The branches connect from one huge tree to another. So it makes Tree City, and each tree is like a little mini suburb, I guess. But anyway, they're up there on the trees, and Biella wants to show uh, Ursula something, but first she's got something that she wants to do first, and we're going to get there in a moment. So the start here, just a bit of commentary on the policy of the new nobility. To you cannot eavesdrop on Nobelia, because everything that any new noble says, or by extension an aspirant, anything, it's available for anyone, right? So you never have an expectation of privacy. You have an expectation that you will actually be listened to. It's encouraged that you listen to what's going on, and this takes on various degrees. You can come and join right there, like if, let's say, we standing and talking, or sitting, right? Doesn't matter, when you come into somebody's space, you're joining in, whether you say something or not. You've now joined, right? And your presence will then affect the conversation. So because of this understanding of this, and that's okay, that's encouraged too. But sometimes you realize that, man, these two are really into it, and they flowing and vibing with each other. I don't want to disturb them, but I want to hear what they're saying. So then you'll hang back a little bit, right? And you may even listen and kind of turn your back, so that you say, look, I just want to listen. I don't want to disturb what's going on, right? So this is very encouraged, right? Or you may even be on the other side of a hedge or something listening, right? This is very, very encouraged, because this is very valuable, especially because the nature of the typical conversation is about moreness stuff, right? So because of this dynamic, usually, like in the case of Biella and Ursula, they're going along and they in their vibe, but they have a little train of aspirants following along with them, and they come and they go, Then when they were interacting with Dream Deer, and Dream Deer was doing Ursula's hair, then there were more there, and then some faded away. But there was one oddity, and this person was following even further back and not following the usual pattern. This is now, of course, anything that's out of pattern, anything that's anomalous is going to catch Biella's attention, right? So this is where we at now. I'll just reread this little part. Among the new nobility, any conversation was always an open one. Nothing a new noble ever said could not be repeated in public. Aspirants were encouraged to listen and partake in conversations at every opportunity. However, when a new noble engaged in an obvious one-on-one, aspirants would usually respect the dynamic and hang back from the conversation, still listening but not partaking. A most marvelous mechanism, providing the opportunity to observe as well as listen. And I commented on this yesterday. Sometimes we listen, but when we're listening, it's difficult to also observe. This is a deep skill that one needs to cultivate, right? To be able to listen and observe both at the same time. It's part of that capital H hearing program. It goes into that. And of course, making space as well, which is part of this whole dynamic, right? Understanding what's involved in making space. Because now you're doing the reverse, right? You are not infringing on space because you understand the dynamic. So this is a very powerful thing to be able to observe and listen. And capital H hearing is connected to attunement. It is the skills of capital H hearing when taken to their extreme is attunement, right? You're hearing, you're making space, you're observing, you're listening, you're extrapolating, you're seeing all the implications and associations, connections, etc. Right? And that was in the opening quote. Sometimes, if a conversation and an interaction gained a large group, the new noble would avail themselves of one of the many places designed for groups. These had hidden speakers. They could key to the nano microphones in their implants, right? So most of the new nobility have implants inside them, which, with eye movements or tongue movements or finger movements, they can key and activate a microphone, and they can pull up a menu that says, nearest speakers, connect me to these, and bingo, right? It's all worked out at a time. So because it's an oral culture and an outdoor culture, oral and outdoor. They spend most of their time outdoors. It has a very benign weather. Just by the way, you might say, well, how is this possible? Nobelia has two sons, and the sons, they pretty much follow the path on the where the tropic of the tropics are, the tropic of Cancer and tropic of Capricorn. So as a result, there's not the extreme poles because the suns they're not following in the center. It's all hot and then it gets colder from there, right? So you get this too. So it's a very, very temperate climate with very mild, very, very mild seasons. So it pretty much has got brilliant weather all year. Right? It's pretty awesome, which is one of the reasons they chose it. So they can spend most of their time outdoors. Anyway, Biella almost always invited any who were listening to join in, if not in conversation, then to be fully present. She loved the group dynamic. She also loved the one-on-one dynamic. Both had such distinct advantages. A few aspirants had followed Biella and Ursula for a while, but they'd come and gone, as the conversation was too specific to Ursula to hold them long. They picked up a fair group when Dream did Ursula's hair. That always happened, since it was a treat to watch Dream work, to simply be near her. An oddity had caught Biella's eye. Aspirants, no matter how diverse, had an abstract similarity, a product of their intent and focus. New nobles made an effort to view others and the world with intent and focus in mind. It told one much. Now, this is something to elaborate on, right? When we look at people, right, what do we typically look, and we're not even consciously doing, but as a habit, most people, when they look at others, what do? They say, what kind of person is this? Are they a mother, a businessman? Are they ambitious? Are they an artist? What, right? That's usually, we look at people in that kind of a thing, right? Or we may look at them, is this person kind of ambitious or greedy or rude or kind? we may look at them in qualities like that also, right? But typically we're looking to define people. But we seldom say, what is the intent of this person? Not just, but the new nobility go further. They don't just say, what is their intent? They ask, what is the intent here, right? Which is a broader question that includes the individual's intent, but it also includes their connection to the world, the universe, and to intent at large. And intent at large, sometimes there's a separate intent going on, right? And that person may or may not be connected to this greater intent of the circumstance of the situation, right? And if they are, that's wonderful. But if not, then you've got to be paying attention, right? And there may be the intents may not necessarily be aligned. But when we pay attention to the greater intent and the individual's intent and the situational intent and own intent too, because things are always related to your own intent. It's always a dynamic, interactive. Now we start to see the world in a very, very different way. Yes? Try this. Just practice this a bit. Right? Practice this. Just to ask when you meet a new person, say, what is the intent here? Very specific question, right? Because that includes the intent of the situation and it includes the intent of the person and your intent, right? Now think of first dates. Yeah. It may be a while for some that have been on a first date, but even if you haven't been on one, I'm pretty sure you probably got friends who've been on one, more or less fairly recently, right? Now, also from stories in the past with your friends of going on first dates, right? Where they go on the date and, your friend will say, oh my gosh, like this girl, she was just like, on a whole different vibe. And man, it's like she had a whole other idea in mind. And it's like, man, that just put me off right away, put up all the red alerts. Now, in that case, the intent of the situation was for, I'm just thinking of like, a friend that I had maybe. And so my friend then, the intent for them, of the universe's intent, was for them to learn their lesson because they'd been on dates before and they'd ignored this and they got into trouble, right? So now it's saying, hey, wake up, pay attention. You've got to look a little bit more, I mean, like I may have had a horny friend and all he was interested was in getting laid and, well, that got him into lots of trouble, right? So I said, no, hey, dude, pay attention. There's more going on here, oh, okay. Well, he's finally learning his lesson. So you see what I mean? There's a greater intent other than his personal intent and the intent of the other person involved, right? And it doesn't matter the genders, obviously, right? So I'm using it as an example of this extra intent that can be involved with it, right? And it's, I've been meaning to try and learn my lesson. Okay, good. I finally did. I actually saw it ahead of time and I got out. And I'm pleased I did because now, before I just would have gone for it and then I'd get into trouble, right? So this is very important to pay attention. And just ask yourself that question. You'll be surprised what comes up, not only about the intent of the person, right, but also the intent of the situation, which can be very different to the intent of the person. Like I have lots of friends who are girls, and I grew up in a house full of girls, and all my sisters always had friends over and all this. So I know it just always been my life was just always very connected to women. This is brilliant. I love women. They're just awesome. But as a result, I've heard many, 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 many stories of dating. Yes, and the trials and tribulations of dating, and so seldom do the woman ask this question, right? What's the intent here? If they had, so many of them would have said, in retrospect, they know always, but not at the time. If they'd asked it at the time, they said, well, now that I, kind of replay the movie of that first impression, if I'd asked that question, I would have clearly seen, well, his intent is predatory. It's like, duh, But he was really nice looking and he was charming and all this. But if I paid attention to the intent, I wouldn't have suppressed all those little, very subtle red flag signs because, well, he was charming and he was nice and he had, he was wealthy and, good looking and all the stuff, that can override it. But also they will say sometimes, yeah, but I didn't want to be rude. The flags were all there. Warnings were all there. right? So you could not only see his intent, but the intent of the situation. His situational intent was saying, wake up, stop letting your ambitions, your desires override your sensibility, right? That's the lesson for you, the capital L lesson. Always with intent, there's a lesson of awareness, right? To enhance and develop your awareness. That's always bottom line. So when you ask this, you find these, you find these. It's a fantastic thing. It's absolutely fantastic to really understand and pay attention and see those warnings, those warnings, and intent, right? So intent is basically the glue that binds everything together. And it's just fantastically powerful and wonderful, right? And paying attention to it is worth it because it reveals the world in a most incredible way. Brilliant. Hey, hi, Victor. Hey, brilliant, brilliant. Hi, I'm glad you're here, Victor. That's most excellent. That's most excellent. That's very cool. Victor, I'm not going to recap the whole story. You'll just have to pick it up as we go along. That would be way too long, right? All right. So we'll carry on here with Biella because we're going to come now to the part of the gesture. An oddity had caught Biella's eye. Aspirants, no matter how diverse, had an abstract similarity, a product of their intent and focus. New nobles made an effort to view others and the world with intent and focus in mind. It told one much. That's what I was elaborating. Biella had noticed an anomalous intent and focus in someone who had been following them. This person had stayed further away than aspirants did, which would make listening difficult. Biella did not recognize the person, despite their lingering familiarity. She had not focused on them too much to unravel the mystery, as there'd been no real need. However, the mystery person had not joined in close with the group which had gathered to watch Dream. Odd. Biella at first thought they might have left, but as soon as she and Ursula started walking, the person again emerged. They'd been waiting. It seemed evident they did not want to come close for fear of being recognized. They did not seem familiar with Tree City. Biella smiled. She always assumed a good reason for the unexplained. That's a very simple little statement there. Seems so casual, but this is huge. And this assumption of a good reason is core to Nobelia-Living, the whole culture of the new nobility, right? So whenever somebody does something, like for instance, Venus not here today. Now I knew ahead of time she's not here, but let's just say, assume I didn't know, and it's like, where's Vina? She said she was going to be here, and she's always here, but she's not here. My first assumption is that there is a good reason for it. I don't know what it is, but something happened. Who knows? Whatever. Internet may be out, power outage, some family situation came up, they got visitors, who knows? Whatever. Some good reason. That's it. I just take it for granted there's a good reason. So I don't worry. I don't stress, right? Now, if it should go, maybe 3, 4 days, all right, then I might, say, well, all right, maybe there's something going on. But again, I am going to assume a good reason until I know different. And this changes the entire relationship when we do this. Now, because sometimes somebody may say something and you're like, what? And you get all up in arms. Were they meaning to be rude and nasty and horrible? No. You can't get all, in a huff. That's just how it came out, right? If you assume there was a good reason, you say, well, what did you mean by that? Like, what? And then I'll say, oh, yeah, I know, I expressed it poorly. I actually meant this or that or that. Or it may happen that they said, man, I was in a terrible mood and I'm sorry, I was just venting. And, oh, okay. Yeah, see? But when we give the benefit of the doubt, when we assume and insist, not just assume, but insist that our friends are creatures of good intent. They are underlying, they are deep in them, they are good, wonderful people. Now, I know this about Norma and Cheryl, right? This is just an absolute fact, right? There's no doubt about it. Uh, Norma and Cheryl, are you always nice? You might say, I'm more so now than I used to be, but in the past, okay, I may have been a bit, bit rude, bit nasty, but not such a good mouth on me, whatever, right? But were you not a good person? No, you were always a good person. Were you a nice person? Yes. Did sometimes your emotions get the better of you? Did you get caught up in negativity? Yes, yes, yes. Right. But if we, as your good friend, if I always insist on focusing on your goodness and your deep underlying good intent, then it just takes all that stuff away. Even though you may say something horrible to me, doesn't matter. I just say, okay, they caught up in something, and I don't let it become an issue. Right? I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you to connect to your goodness and your good intent. Uh, Yes, you may have a temporary aberration because that's just habit. We've been trained this way. We grow up in the superiority paradigm, which says you have to, when somebody does something, you have to respond. You have to be nasty back. You can't let them sit on your head, blah, blah, blah. All this fighting logic, right? That's superiority paradigm. Everybody's fighting everybody, competing with each other. But the competition is not nice. It's horrible, right? So fighting, essentially, right? So when we say no, none of that. We're not going to get caught up in superiority paradigm. We're going to get caught up in moreness paradigm. Moreness paradigm says you, my wonderful, beautiful friends, are all deeply good people. This I know. Do you always behave according to your goodness? No, because you haven't had practice, right? That's it. You're just out of practice. It's just habit that gets you to behave, foolishly sometimes, right? Just habit, habit, habit. That's it. However, I'm going to create the space and an environment where your goodness can come up, right? And this is part of the logic of these lives, is to share with that different paradigm involved, where the moreness paradigm comes in, yes, and not the superiority paradigm. So yeah, you can be free to share your goodness, share your moreness, share your deep thoughts, get involved in profound conversations, etc. Right? This is a different space, a different environment. You don't have to conform to the usual. Right? So very, very powerful. Yes, exactly, Norma. We are different because we've been trained. And when you, for instance, you in a bad relationship, for instance, or you grow up in a family that is all caught up in the superiority paradigm, it sometimes is just a matter of survival to be applying that. You don't really have much of a choice, right? Especially when you're young. So we learn these habits, we learn these ways of being, but they're not the only ways to be, right? And we can surpass them and go beyond them, and we can learn to deal with it. And this is, of course, the whole nobility culture and capital diplomacy and paying attention to intent and all of the marvelous stuff, gestures, right? So there is a moreness, profound, profound moreness that we can do. And it all rests on this assumption of a good reason behind somebody's behavior. Assume that it's good, no matter how it may seem otherwise. Insist on it being good. Not just even assume, just take it for granted. I know you. I know you're a good person. I know you cannot deliberately be horrible. The key is deliberate. You may inadvertently be so, but deliberately, no. Right? If you in full consciousness and awareness, you aren't going to be horrid and nasty. Yeah? Even if somebody deserves it, I know what good, wonderful people you are. You're going to have a hard time doing it. Yes? Because once you think about it, you say, well, they also got caught up in a bubble. They're also behaving according to their culture. So, how can I really hold it against them? Yeah, they shouldn't do it, but nonetheless, can't really hold it against them, right? So, is it good to the individual? Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. This is a profound goodness. We are assuming that the individual has deep good intent as their core. We are therefore reacting and relating to them according to their deep inner core, not their behavior. Yes. Do you always behave the way you want to be as a person, the way you truly are as a person? No. We get caught up in all sorts of nonsense behavior. And much of it is habits and conditioning and stuff like that, right? So we don't always behave the way we actually want to behave. How can I hold that against you? You don't mean to do this, right? Stuff coming out of you, right? So it's very important to be aware of that when we relate to people according to their deep inner moreness, it changes everything. And this is Nobelia-Living, right? There's no way any new noble will ever get annoyed or upset or irritated or angry or insulted or offended by anybody else, especially another new noble, right? Why? Because they know this is absolutely impossible for that person to deliberately do. So if somebody does say something that's like, hey, what? Then it'll be a mystery. Like, really? She said that? Wow. Like, let me find out why. There must be some good reason for it. And then you find out why. And maybe the person is doing a study, just for argument's sake, right? That's very typical nobility. Yes, I was testing this theory that if you said this and people will react. Okay, all right. My theory flopped. It doesn't work on Nobelia, right? But okay, well, that's a good reason. Whatever the good reason may be, right? But very often they are very elaborate, moreness reasons for why the new nobility do things, and of course, it's part of the culture. But the end result of it is that you always have good interaction because you're always assuming good intent and niceness, kindness and generosity and consideration and nobility and all the wonderful qualities. This is your base. This is your default, right? We grow up in a culture, the superiority paradigm culture, where unfortunately that's not true. Most of the motivations that people have are negative. They're looking to pull down those above them and push down those below them, right? That's horrible. That's a horrible intent. Yeah? To be superior and better, make others worse. Oh, it's terrible. Terrible. Win at all costs. A horrible mindset. So we have to understand that. Yes, yes. Well, this whole thing about judging, I don't want to go into it, but it's one of those square circle nonsense. If you don't judge anybody, you'd have no morality. So we have to judge, right? And what that means is don't judge. Means don't point out my flaws. That's all that means, really. So anyway, it's just this whole judge thing is just it's a mess, a lot of nonsense, right? So feel free to judge me. Feel free to judge me. I welcome it. You're more than welcome. If you're judging me and I come up short, well then I'll learn something. And I'll say, oh, I must improve on that point. So I welcome it, like any new noble would do. Not that I think of myself as a new noble. I barely make it as an aspirant in my mind, but nonetheless, right? As an aspirant, I want to know because I want to learn. I want to learn. I want to learn. So it's very important judging, yes. And like I said, if you don't judge, you have no morality. This is what makes morality: is judging things to be right or wrong. It's morality, right? All right. Um, Ursula was paying attention. Her comment had another meaning at the time, but it had served to sharpen Ursula's attention. She indeed had something to show Ursula. But first, the mystery person. At the end of the straight path, they could see the branch take a turn. But after that, it was obscured by dense clusters of vertical branches and a variety of other plants. As Biella reached the branch end, she took the turn to the right. It curved for a few paces, then curved back to the left. They passed through a gate of foliage to reveal a magnificent sky garden. The large branch looped all the way around in a circle, about 15 or 20 paces across. Vertical branches or trees lined the outside of the circle. The trees connected to each other across the circle with what seemed like flower line. Fantastic flowering creepers and vines crisscrossed the circle at all angles, creating a merry profusion of color which danced and swung in the breeze. Flutterbys and birds were seen in great profusion, all extremely active and lively, the excitement palpable. They seemed to be very actively celebrating. Ursula wanted to stop and observe, but Biella sped up. This is a year-round phenomenon, Biella yelled when Ursula caught up. The noise tremendous. Birds and flutterbys come from all over the area. They don't all come at once, and they never come twice. It's from something the flowers give off. Normally I would stay and spend some time, but Biella had completed the circle. If I have timed this right. She stepped through the hanging foliage which covered the opening, back to the straight path of the large branch, bumping into the stranger as she did. She did get her timing right. Oops, so sorry, Biella said, grabbing the stranger's arm to make sure she did not fall. There were safety nets, but still. Stranger dropped their head, mumbling something incoherent, and tried to keep going as if it was nothing. But Ursula had been paying attention. She'd followed Biella closely. Now the stranger was effectively trapped between her and Biella. Heila! Ursula exclaimed with genuine surprise. Now Biella recognized her also with the same surprise. Heila Clarence Lequan was one of the delegates. She'd never said one word in all the time either Biella or Ursula had been near her. She'd always seemed somewhat disconnected. Her blonde hair was hidden by a bushy black which all but covered her face. Now, however, her eyes were bright, alert, and embarrassed. Biella reigned in her surprise, replacing it with openness. No judgment of any kind. She added kindness and softness. It was okay. Whatever the reasons, she assumed they were good ones. She'd wait. If they came, they came. The delegates and everyone else were free to do as they pleased. And right there, I want to stop here. I just want to keep it short for today, but I want to elaborate on this. This part here, right? That Biella's reaction. This is the gesture, right? At least for somebody who is not from Nobelia, as this person obviously is. Biella's already identified from just the way they were moving and their intent and the way they carry themselves and their focus and everything, that they are neither a new noble or an aspirant, right? So they're not from Nobelia, right? And it turns out that she's one of the delegates, which, yes, that was a possibility because really the only other people would be either a tourist, a visitor, or one of the delegates, right? But so they're clearly not um, uh, from Nobelia. And as such, uh, this openness that she shows, right? The openness for her to this person to be absolutely anything. It's very deliberate that she's doing this, right? Because with another aspirant or a new noble, it's just taken for granted that you have this openness, yes? But you have to deliberately do it with somebody who's not aware that necessarily aware that this is part of the culture, right? So it's quite a profound thing when you're in come from the typical culture, which usually has, at least in agglomeration, it's much less. So the superiority paradigm is very much less in the agglomeration, but it's still there. But nonetheless, when you come from a culture where such openness is not automatic, yes, to receive it is an incredible thing, right? I don't know if any of you have received such openness, right? I think, Cheryl, when you come on Zoom, right? When you came on Zoom for Way of Impeccability, that environment on Zoom, that openness there, you've experienced it. And it's a very profound thing, right? It encourages you to share and be open. And that there's there's nothing you can hold back, nothing you cannot say. You encourage just without even a word being spoken, just the mood, the vibe encourages that, right? So this openness when coming at one deliberately, right? And when I have somebody new come on Zoom, I'm doing what Biella is doing also. Yes, I'm deliberately sharing a vibe and a mood of openness. Yes, and it's quite amazing how powerful that is. I've had people that I don't know from anywhere that just came on, somebody sent them and, go speak to them, and they got problems. And they just start talking and sharing their deepest secrets just immediately, right? It's a very powerful thing, this openness. And also, you were talking about judgment, right? Most times in culture, when you're behaving a bit oddly, which obviously Heila is here, there's, there's an implied judgment or something. Well, you're behaving oddly. Huh? But with Biella, absolutely not. It was okay, capital okay. Yes, right? Whatever the reasons, she assumed they were good ones. She's consciously, deliberately using the force of her awareness to project and put out this awareness, this attitude. And also, part of the gesture is, right, she'd wait. If if things came out, if the reasons came, whatever you wanted to say, that's fine. If not, that's okay, right? And you're free to do as you like. So as part of the gesture is there's not an expectation of explanation. She'd wait. If it comes, it comes. If not, not. That's fine. Right? This is a huge thing to do for somebody because obviously she is curious and she'd love to know. But she's setting aside her curiosity and saying, whatever you choose to do is okay by me. That's a massive gesture. It's a massive gesture to give to somebody who's a complete stranger, right? So, and there's more gestures coming. There's gestures and friendships doesn't only apply to this chapter. It applies to the next couple as well, right? More gestures going to come. It's just a big deal. It's a very subtle gesture. This doesn't make it any less profound and no big deal, right? And of course, it changes Heila, right? She now she responds to this in a very profound way, right? And it triggers a shift and a change. And sometimes all you need is that tiny little start to get the dominoes toppling, right? That's the magic of dominoes. That topple the first domino takes very little, right? Take very much to topple a domino. Yes. But when things are lined up, and part of this, Biella's reaction here, right? Because it's a reaction. She does it immediately. Now she's also prepared, right? But it's a give, it's a gesture, it's a gift of energy that she gives Heila. And this gift of energy, it lines up the dominoes, allowing Heila to topple that first domino. But Biella's gesture lines him up, right? Heila has the choice to topple the first one, which she does do, right? As we see here in the next line. Oh, it doesn't matter anymore, Heila said, removing the wig. She smiled with intelligence and intensity. Difference remarkable. I will tell all. Is there, right? So now also she started. And again, there's no rush, right? They go and take their time. But I want to end there today. I know it's not very long, but I want to save my energy. This flu, my cough came back a bit worse this morning. So I want to just, be a bit measured and take it easy. Beside which, I don't want to go too far because Bina is keen we go through this as well. So we might repeat this little part here tomorrow. Bina, this is a big, big part for Bina. She was very keen to go over it. We discussed it some already, but she was keen to get. Any questions, any comments? Norma, Cheryl, Victor? I'm keen to hear from you, Victor. Keen to hear from you. Keen to hear. I mean, this is what these opens are all about, right? Moreness, discussing things. Whatever comes up in you, it may be completely unrelated, doesn't matter. That's part of the whole takeaway process, yes? To share what comes up in you, regardless of how connected it may think it is. So keen to hear from you, Victor. Keen to hear from you. Very keen, very cool that you here. Very cool that you here. I especially like it when the regular contributors in the group come to the lives. Yeah. Uh, you know, it's just I feel that you contribute a lot in the group, and I create an environment where you can share, right? So it's very beneficial, obviously, for those contributors. So I feel that just in the interest of knowing what the group is about more, to come to the groups, to come to the lives, right? To get an idea of the underlying intent that is underlying the group. Yes, so it's very important to come and you can pick it up, from any of the lives if you're paying attention, you're listening and observing at the same time. You're paying attention to the intent. Yes, to that intent to moreness, that intent to goodness, that intent to nobility, that intent to share, that intent to communicate with a different paradigm, not the competitive competition, paradigm, not the superiority. So there's a lot going on, a lot going on, right? As in everything with me is always multi-layers, multi-layers. Yeah. Any comments, Gerald? Any comments, Norma? I'll give it a moment. That's very cool. That's very cool. The very key part, the gesture. And gestures are a big deal. Oh, pleasure, Norma. Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So wonderful that you're here. This stuff. Makes me very happy. And Cheryl too. I think Cheryl may be working. She may be playing hooky a little bit from work. I don't know. Guessing so. Or maybe it was during your lunch hour. But I love it when you just pop in, even if it's always good. Always good. And you're always welcome, to come on Zoom as well. As you know, Norma is. And sometimes too, I like it where, yes, I'm reading, but especially in the week now. Okay, on Sundays I read it. But on the week, I prefer when others read. Like Venus, she practices her reading. Just to read stories, it's a particular skill. And all it needs, like any skill really, is just practice, right? You can use that opportunity. All right. On that note, I shall end it all, and I will see you tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow. Do wonderful. All right. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. So brilliant. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.